Hi everyone. I'm going to show you how to make a character for Dungeons and Dragons Basic Expert, which is the 1981 rule set. Um, that rule set's been rewritten for modern times by a company called Necrotic Gnome, specifically a man named Gavin Norman who works for them. And they release a product called Old School Essentials. And it's the same rules, it's just written in a way that's much easier to parse using kind of modern design philosophies and sensibilities. The good news is that they have a website, or somebody has made a website called dndcharacter.com, and you can use that website to make characters from all of the official OSE books. OSE has a number of different books. I can show you pictures of them all if you like. I've got them all. Um, there's a kind of a basic version of the game which is tied into the D&D basic set. There's an advanced version of the game which is tied into the expert set. And then it has kind of branched off from there as they have released um, expansions and supplements and so on. But this website lets you make characters using all of that stuff. And it's free, which is the best price. You don't need to know the game in order to make a character here. It should probably be noted that character power is much lower in this version than it is in modern versions of the game. And it should probably be noted that your character's successes come from your decisions and your problem solving and your kind of lateral thinking more so than they do from buttons and levers that you might find on a character sheet in a modern version of the game. What I mean by that is, if there's a puzzle, then you wouldn't be expected to simply roll an intelligence check to work out if your character can determine the solution to that puzzle or not. You, as the player, would be expected to come up with a solution to that puzzle. Now, the solution that you come up with might not be the solution that I had in mind when I created the puzzle as the Dungeon Master. Truthfully, as a Dungeon Master, I will often not have solutions in mind, and the players will come up with a fun solution that I think, that sounds awesome, that sounds fun, that sounds reasonable, therefore it works. Whereas in modern versions of the game, it's much more common that the Dungeon Master would have a puzzle and a solution, and that the way that the players get from puzzle to solution is by rolling a dice and making sure that the number's high enough. So there's a different design philosophy involved. So what I'm saying is, don't be put off by seeing numbers on your character sheet that are perhaps lower than you might see on a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition character sheet, on a Pathfinder character sheet, on a character sheet in Baldur's Gate 3, for example. The numbers here will be lower. That's to be expected. Don't worry too much about that. To get started, simply click Start. It does this cool weird zoom in thing when you do that. If you want to have some fun, click on Dice Animations. I've never done that, so I'm not going to do it when I'm recording this. I'm just going to hit Start. And then you can see here, character class, select your class. So you can pick a class here. They're all enabled currently. Don't click a class first. That's not the first thing you're going to do. There are more classes available. So these are the classes that are in the basic version of the game. The fighter, self-explanatory. The cleric, probably self-explanatory. The magic user. If you're used to modern D&D, that would be a wizard. A thief, closest would be a rogue, but there are some differences. And then some key differences between this version and modern D&D is that non-human races, so these people here, the fighter, the cleric, the magic user, and the thief, these are all expected to be human, but things like dwarf, elf, halfling, and you'll see some more in a moment, these are all distinct classes. So in a modern version of the game, you will pick a class like a fighter or a cleric, and you will pick a race like a human or a dwarf. That's not the case here. Non-human races, or demi-human races as they're called, are classes. Go ahead and tick the button here for advanced classes, and you'll see that the options available in the advanced book become available to you. And then Necrotic Gnome put out a periodical called Carcass Crawler. There are 6 of those now. Go ahead and tick this one, and you'll get the options that are in each of those books. You'll see that Gargantua is grayed out currently, so you could not select that just now, but what we're going to do, that will be different for you, by the way. The options which are enabled or disabled will be different when you first load up this screen. Um, and then these are your ability scores, and it tells you what they're for. So strength is for melee attacks, intelligence is for languages, and so on. The options that you have here dictate the options that you have here. Or rather, the scores you have here, I should say. Your ability scores dictate the class options that you have. So what I would recommend doing is reading through these. Truthfully, I'd probably stick to these ones, but don't feel obligated to do that. Have a read through these, just look at them, just look at the names and get a feel for what you think it might be. Some of them are very similar. Magic user versus kinesicist versus mage, for example, all sound like they probably do the same thing. Illusionist might fall into that. Necromancer potentially falls into that as well. So just get a feel for what they might be. Don't worry too much about it. Do they sound cool? Then come down here and hit roll all, and you'll get a new set of 6 versions. So new 6 scores. The reason these are much lower than you might expect is what's happening behind the scenes is 3d6, 3 6-sided dice are being rolled, and then those are totaled up. So an average from a d6 is 3.5, so an average for 3 of them is only 10.5, I hope, if my maths is correct. So you can see that these are all going to be much lower than you would get on a modern version. And once I've rolled these stats, the options which appear here are different because I've now got lower scores than I had before. So, like I said, maybe come up with an idea or two of which classes you want to be, roll your stats. I don't care about integrity, as it were, because we're all adults, we're all playing to have fun, we're not playing to beat each other. So if you're unhappy with what you get here, roll again, and you get a different option, and you get different options up here. So this barbarian, this person cannot be a barbarian, presumably because there's a minimum amount of constitution required. I don't know off the top of my head. So if I wanted to be a barbarian, for example, I'm going to look at this and say I can't be a barbarian. So I'm going to just roll again. And then I still cannot be a barbarian, but I've got a very high wisdom score, so maybe I want to be a class that relies upon wisdom, and then I would pick one of these and go ahead and just make one that I think might sound about right. Don't worry about optimizing things because it truthfully doesn't matter. Just find a name that sounds cool, that sounds like it's going to do the fun things that you think it's going to do, and roll stats until you find one that fits. So let's imagine that, for example, I want to play a fighter. Then a fighter's going to bash people's heads in, so I want a decent strength score. I'm just going to roll until I get a reasonable strength score. And reasonable, if I remember correctly, is like 13 or higher, because 13 gives you +1. So I'm just going to take that. Now my fighter can bash people in the head, but he's got a low constitution. But that's okay, because stats don't mean a huge amount. So I'm going to pick fighter. And you can see here when I click fighter, I get fighter details, and it tells me a description. It tells me what they need. They need strength, and it tells me just bits and pieces that you don't really need to care about. But they can use any armor, they can use any weapons. And if I were to pick magic user, then similarly it says I need intelligence. I only get a 4-sided dice for my hit points instead of an 8-sided dice that we saw in the fighter. But regardless, I'm going to minimize this. I'm going to hit fighter. I've got my stats. He's going to be quite weak because of his constitution, but that's okay. And then I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to hit class options. I can roll my HP. I get an 8-sided dice, but my constitution is low, so I get -1 to that. So my fighter has 3 hit points. That's probably okay. These are his saving throws that he gets. Don't worry about it. We can kind of go over that as it comes up during the game. And hit go to equipment. And then roll gold. This is how much wealth your character has at the beginning of the game. My character has 130 gold pieces. Probably not bad. I don't know the maths behind it. My fighter is weak, so I think we need to kind of stat him out as best as possible. You can see here that if he were to have no armor, then his AC or his armor class would be 9 bracket 10. In the older versions of the game, a lower armor class was better. They used a system called THACO that is highly controversial in modern times. It's actually really straightforward because it's just the opposite number that sums to 19, but we'll use ascending armor, where the higher your armor, the harder it is for you to hit. So I've got 130 gold. I'm going to need to get some weapons and whatnot. I'm going to get a plate mail, which will give me a 16 armor class, and I'm going to get a shield, which will give me +1. And now I've got 60 gold left. So what weapon do I want? Probably a sword. Do we have a short sword, or is it simply sword? I could take a short sword. I'm not sure why I would. It would save some money perhaps, but I'll take a sword. I'll buy that. And then maybe I take a dagger. I'm going to put everything into a backpack and just go through here and pick what you want. In terms of the adventure, you will be adventuring through a cellar or a basement of a mansion. So buy your equipment with that in mind, knowing that you're probably not far from a settlement. You have probably been on the road, so you're probably going to need a bedroll. But you have been traveling, so don't worry too much about needing things like a tent, for example. I don't know if a tent's in here or not. Don't worry about needing a tent, because you're at the end of your journey. We can hand wave what's happened before. You might want snakes and a mallet, for example, if you think you're coming up against vampires. Maybe you want a pole for poking people from far away. Maybe you want a mirror to look around the corner. So we're just buying things that you think might be useful. Make sure to buy a lantern maybe, so that you can see things, and we're doing that. Okay, so this guy has plate mail with a shield and a sword, and he has some stuff. Maybe some caltrops, so he can like stop people from coming up the path behind him. Cool. Right, he's got some gear. I don't know if that's optimal, but this is just a demonstration. So now we can pick some character names. So my character is going to be called Crypto. Give him a random name if you want. Select alignment. This is, again, a slight change from modern systems. Modern systems essentially have an alignment chart, I guess, which is a 3x3 matrix, where along one axis you have lawful, neutral, and chaotic, I believe, and then on the other you would have good, neutral, and evil. So in modern games, you could be lawful evil. So you could be lawful in that you live your life by a code, and you adhere to that strict code, and that code means a lot to you and is part of your identity. But you could also act evilly. You could act selfishly. You could pursue power. Similarly, you could be chaotic in that you don't care for the rules and you're happy to break the rules in the pursuit of what you believe to be the right thing to do, and that could be either pursuit of power to be chaotic evil, or you could be pursuing kind of goodness, justice, truth, whatever that might be. And so you could be chaotic good or chaotic evil. You could be lawful good or lawful evil. That's not the case here. Lawful, neutral, or chaotic. This has, if you were playing like a long form campaign, this has like overarching ramifications for your character. What kind of spells can you cast? That depends upon if you're lawful or neutral. What gods can you worship? Depends upon if you're lawful or neutral. What languages can you speak? That depends. So just lawful, good, chaotic, evil. That's a very broad strokes take on things. Just have a think about what you want to be. And you can see that there is a lawful language, there is a chaotic language, there is a neutral language. Crypto's going to be lawful. Alignment languages like that are probably best thought of as less so than literal language, although that is how it is written in the book, but it's maybe better to kind of think of those as either codes or hidden words or intuition, or like the Mason's handshake, that kind of thing. Regardless, it won't come up, so don't worry too much about it. Lawful for me. It will matter if you're casting spells, I think, so consider that. Optional details. These are optional, so do it or don't. We will do it. We'll hit background, it rolls. All these different options. So my guy used to be a cartographer, so he's good at making maps. That might be useful. So if you can, it won't be a mechanical thing, but it will be a negotiation between the player and the dungeon master. If you want to draw a map and you're getting things wrong, you could tell me, hey, I used to be a cartographer, I should be good at this, and then we can kind of give you the answer. And then we've got appearance and whatever else. You can re-roll these. You can leave them blank and just imagine it however you want them to be. But you know, it gives you a couple of verbs, sorry, adjectives that you can apply to your character when you're describing him or her. And then we've got these. We hit go to character sheet, and there we go. We have a character. He was a cartographer. He is shadowy and slender in appearance. His personality is merciful and celibate. All right. He suffered a misfortune in the past whereby he was exiled. Um, his strength is 13, giving him a +1 modifier to abilities or checks that require strength. Everything else doesn't have a modifier because it's middle of the road. Constitution has a -1 modifier. If he has to save against a wand attack, he gets to roll against the 13 and so on. His abilities, he can build a stronghold when he gets to a high enough level. He has 3 hit points. Enemies need to roll 17 or higher to hit him. He has a sword in one hand, a shield in the other. He's carrying plate mail, and he has a backpack with all this cool stuff in it, and he still has 23 gold to spend. And at this point, we can export it to a PDF, and there are 3 different options for doing that. I don't know if this is going to record or not. I think it is. So we now have a PDF with a character sheet on it. And there's a bunch of stuff that are missing from there. These exploration chances, ignore it all. Don't worry about it. We will cover that during the game. And that's your character sheet for your Dungeons & Dragons Basic Expert game or your Old School Essentials game. If you have any questions, message me in Discord. If you want to do something weird or funky that's not on here for any reason, let me know and we can do it. But it's a one-off adventure. Don't take it too seriously. Be whatever or whoever you want to be, and I'm sure we will all have fun.